Last Christmas, my family booked a tropical vacation. Flights, hotels, plans made in group chats, and not a single word to me. I showed up on Christmas Eve with gifts I'd saved for months to buy. They smiled, hugged me, acted like I mattered, but their flights were the next morning. I wasn't invited, I wasn't even mentioned. That day, something inside me cracked. I wasn't the daughter. I was the donor. I was the just-in-case fallback. My name is Grace. I'm 31, and I grew up believing that if I gave enough, they'd love me back. But I was wrong. You can give your whole heart to people who only see you as the strong one and still end up forgotten. Have you ever realized you were only valuable when you were useful? That love for some is just polite dependency. If any part of that feels familiar, stay. Because this isn't a pity story. It's the moment I stopped begging for crumbs and chose to set the whole table differently. I didn't get here overnight. It took years. Years of being the one who showed up. The one who said yes even when it hurt. The one who never asked for much in return. Growing up, I wasn't the loud one. Not the dreamer. Not the rebel. That was Dylan, my older brother. Always chasing some new idea. And Lila, our youngest. Soft, artistic, a little lost. I was steady. I made lists, paid bills, held the family together in ways no one noticed. When Dylan crashed another business idea, Mom and Dad turned to me. When Lila dropped out again, they called me to help her through it. And I did. Every time, I gave. Quietly. Because that's what good daughters do, right? They sacrifice. They make things work. They keep the peace, even when it costs them everything. For a while, I wore that role like a badge. Responsible, capable, strong. But the truth is, I never chose it. It was handed to me. And I carried it until it broke something inside me. Have you ever been praised for being the strong one while quietly falling apart? If so, you'll understand what happened next. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was 1,000 small ones, stacked over time until they finally tipped. After college, I got a job at a marketing firm. Worked 80-hour weeks, no shortcuts, no favors, just pure effort. Meanwhile, Dylan floated from one project to the next. A food truck, an app idea, a clothing line he never finished launching. Each one ended the same debt and disappointment. And then he'd come knocking with promises, business plans, big dreams. He always needed just a little help. From Mom and Dad, and when they ran out, from me. I lent him thousands. No contracts, no interest, no deadlines, just hope. Lila was different. She wasn't chasing money, she was chasing herself. Art school, culinary school, web design, each path abandoned halfway, each exit followed by a request. Can you cover this rent? My car broke down. I need help getting back on my feet. And I gave, because she cried, because Mom said she's sensitive, because Dad said she just needs time, and I was the strong one, the one who never needed anything. So I kept giving, loan after loan, bill after bill, with no thanks, no repayment, just more need and less of me. Can you relate to that slow burn, the kind that doesn't explode, just quietly erodes who you are? That's where I was, and I still believe they loved me. Until Christmas proved otherwise. 3 years ago, I met Paul. It was at a charity event through work. He held the door open. I thanked him. He smiled like he already knew me. From our first conversation, he saw something others missed. That behind the smiles, I was tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes, the kind that builds from years of being needed but never seen. By our third date, I canceled dinner. Lila was moving again. Her roommates were toxic. Her lease was up. Paul didn't get angry. He just asked gently, "Do you realize you're enabling them?" I laughed, brushed it off. "They're going through a hard time," I said. "They do the same for me." But deep down, I wasn't so sure. Paul came from a different kind of family. One where help wasn't assumed, where no one was the default fixer. He never pushed, never told me what to do, but he did something I wasn't used to. He asked, "What do you need?" And I didn't know how to answer. No one had asked me that before. Not Mom, not Dad, not Dylan or Lila, just Paul. Have you ever met someone who saw through your strength and asked what it was costing you? That question stayed with me, right up until Christmas. Despite Paul's quiet warnings, I believed this Christmas would be different. It had to be. Paul and I had just gotten engaged. He proposed under the falling leaves of October. Simple, beautiful, a moment that finally felt like mine, and I knew I wanted to share it with my family, all of them, together. For weeks, I planned everything. I picked the perfect moment Christmas morning. That's when we'd tell them, when everyone would be smiling, relaxed home. It would be a new beginning for all of us. Even with work deadlines piling up, I carved out time for the holidays, made lists, checked them twice, found a new coffee machine for mom and dad, the one they said they couldn't afford. Noise-canceling headphones for Dylan, since focus was his new thing. A professional camera for Lila. She said she wanted to try photography. Each gift chosen with care. Wrapped late at night, paid with credit. I imagined their faces, their joy, maybe even pride. Finally, they'd see me, not just as the helper, but as someone worth celebrating. Have you ever held on to hope? Even when everything told you not to, I did. And I was wrong. 2 weeks before Christmas, I called Mom like I always did. Every year I came early, helped decorate, cook, organize. It was our tradition, and part of me still believed they needed me for that. But this time, she told me not to. Don't worry about coming early this year, honey, she said. Your father and I have it under control. I paused. You sure I can come Thursday instead of Friday? No, she answered quickly. We'll be tied up with church things. Just come Christmas Eve morning like the others. Her voice sounded sweet, but rehearsed, like a line in a play. When I hung up, I sat in silence. That had never happened before. I tried not to overthink. Tried to tell myself, maybe they're just trying to give you a break. But the air felt strange, like something was missing from the spaces between their words. So I called Dylan. When are you heading to Mom and Dad's? He hesitated. Probably Christmas Eve, like always. Want me to pick you up? No, I can drive. Cool. I might have last-minute stuff anyway. Too fast, too vague. Have you ever felt someone was hiding something but couldn't prove it yet? That was me. And I wasn't wrong. The next day, I decided to stop by unannounced. I'd baked some cookies, a little tradition between Mom and me. And honestly, I needed to shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Their house looked too perfect. The driveway clear, the lights already up, the porch swept clean. Dad opened the door fast, almost like he was waiting. Grace. What a surprise. His smile stretched too wide. I brought cookies, I said. He barely glanced at the box. Through the garage door, just before it closed, I caught a flash of suitcases. Big ones. Matching. What's with the luggage? I asked. Oh, those, he laughed. Old stuff for the church donation drive. Right. In December, 3 days before Christmas. Inside the house was spotless, not festive, just sanitized. No baking smells, no scattered wrapping paper, no music playing like usual. I noticed a few travel brochures stuffed halfway under a magazine. Tropical beaches, blue water, palm trees. Your mom's been on a cleaning spree, Dad said quickly. You know how she gets. I nodded, but something in my chest tightened. As I was leaving, I heard him say into the phone, Yes, she stopped by. No, I don't think she suspects anything. That was the moment I knew whatever this was, I wasn't part of it. After that visit, everything felt off. I called Lila the next morning, tried to keep it casual. Figured out your ride for Christmas, I asked? She paused. Maybe. A friend might drive me. But you live the opposite direction, I said. That'd be way out of their way. She laughed, but it sounded forced. I've got stops to make, gifts to pick up. Then she changed the subject, fast. One by one, everyone I asked seemed to have half answers. Vague plans, too many coincidences. Still, I kept hoping, kept telling myself, don't be paranoid. And it's the holidays, everyone's busy. Then came the group text from Mom. Reminder, Christmas Eve dinner at 6. Church service at 9. Presents Christmas morning at 10. Can't wait to have all my children under one roof. I stared at the message. Can't wait to have all my children. It was supposed to comfort me. Instead, it felt like a script. A line said too loud, too perfect. I showed it to Paul. He read it slowly. You still think you're imagining this? He asked. I didn't answer. I didn't know. But something inside me had shifted. Like I was already being left out long before I even walked through the door. Christmas Eve morning, Paul and I packed the car with gifts and champagne. I forced a smile. Told myself everything would be fine. The house looked exactly the same, multicolored lights, plastic Santa on the porch, the smell of cinnamon drifting from the oven. It was almost cruel how normal it all seemed. Mom opened the door arms wide. Grace. You look tired, sweetie. Are you sleeping? Dad clapped Paul on the back. Glad you could make it, son. Inside the living room glowed. Dylan and Lila were already there. They smiled, but their eyes didn't hold me. They kept glancing at their phones. Aunt Helen and Uncle Jack arrived, followed by my cousins Emily and Noah. Everyone exchanged loaded glances, the kind that say more than words ever could. Aunt Helen hugged me tight. It's so good to see you, dear. We've missed you at family gatherings. Her words froze me. I hadn't missed a single one. I looked around. Everyone talked, laughed, but it felt practiced, too clean, too careful. No one asked about our engagement. No one mentioned the ring I wore on my left hand. I told myself I was imagining things, but then Lila handed me her phone. Can you grab this from the kitchen? She asked. I left it on the counter. I nodded. And that's when everything changed. I walked into the kitchen, Lila's phone sitting right there on the counter. As I picked it up, the screen lit up. A notification slid across the top flight confirmed. 10 a.m., 12:26, everyone packed. My heart stopped. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The preview told me enough. Someone had booked a flight, a group, together, leaving the day after Christmas, and I wasn't one of them. I stood still, gripping the phone like it might explain itself. My thoughts raced. Maybe it was a surprise. Maybe they planned something for me and Paul, but deep down, I already knew. No one had mentioned a trip, not once, not a word. I returned into the living room, handed the phone back without a word. My smile didn't reach my eyes, my body moved, but my mind was somewhere else. During church, I sat in silence. Carols blurred, words floated past me. The stained glass windows shimmered, but I couldn't feel anything. Paul looked at me concerned. I squeezed his hand, tried to hold it together. Should I say something now? Would anyone admit it? Would they even care? I didn't know what to do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't supposed to see that message. Christmas morning came cold and bright. The sky was clear. The house was quiet. I woke early, the message still looping in my mind, but I smiled anyway. Today was the day. Paul and I would finally tell them. Our engagement, our future, a chance to bring everyone closer maybe. Downstairs, the living room glowed. Twinkling lights, presents arranged perfectly under the tree. The scent of cinnamon rolls drifted from the kitchen. Mom had even brought out the special china, the one we only used once a year. Dad handed out coffee. Dylan looked half asleep. Lila sat on the floor sorting gifts like always. I handed out the presents I'd spent weeks choosing. For Lila, the camera she'd once mentioned in passing. She barely looked at it. Oh, thanks. Dylan muttered something about the headphones, didn't even take them out of the box. Mom and Dad smiled at their new coffee machine, but there was a strange heaviness in the room, like everyone knew something and no one was saying it. And then it was our turn. Paul and I stood up. I held out my hand, sapphire ring catching the morning light. We're engaged, I said, smiling, hopeful. There was a pause, just a second too long, then quiet claps, soft congratulations, no questions, no champagne, no real joy. They were there. But they weren't really with me. I tried to stay present, tried to hold on to the moment, but something was wrong. After our announcement, no one asked about the proposal. No one looked at the ring twice. No one even opened the champagne I'd brought just for this. They moved on fast. Mom went to check the ham. Lila vanished into the hallway, and I stood there feeling invisible. I offered to help with dinner, like always. Mom smiled. No need, sweetie. Lila's already helping me. That stung. Just a little more than I expected. In the shuffle, Lila left her phone on the couch. The screen lit up. My eyes caught it without meaning to. Final reminder. Meet at airport 8 a.m. tomorrow. Don't forget passports and sunscreen. My throat tightened. My hands went cold. I picked up the phone, opened the message before I could stop myself. Bahamas group chat. Every name. Mom, Dad, Dylan, Lila, Aunt Helen, Uncle Jack, Emily, Noah. Everyone except Paul and me. They'd been planning this for months, sharing resort links, booking excursions, comparing flight prices. And then I saw it, a message from Mom. Not a word to Grace. She's too busy anyway. That was the moment it all shattered. Not just Christmas, but everything I thought I knew. I kept reading, even when I wanted to stop. Another message from Dylan. She'd probably say no anyway, some work thing. And then Lila replied, plus, she'd bring Paul. And this is supposed to be just family. Just family. Those two words hit harder than anything else. I was family when they needed help. When rent was due. When tuition was overdue. When bills piled up. But not for this. Not for memories. Not for joy. Not when it mattered. I set the phone down quietly. Walked into the bathroom. Locked the door. My heart was racing, my hands were shaking, but mostly, I just felt hollow. Like something had drained out of me. Fast. Paul knocked gently. You okay? I nodded, but I wasn't. We sat through Christmas dinner, smiled, passed plates, laughed at things I didn't hear, and I said nothing. Not yet. Because I needed to be sure. Because part of me still wanted to be wrong. But I wasn't. Boom. They planned joy without me in it, and then acted like I should still feel grateful. That night, Paul and I lay in my old bedroom, lights off. He whispered, you need to ask them. I nodded. I would, just not yet. I barely slept. My body was still, but my mind replayed every message, every word, every lie. By morning, my eyes were dry, but my chest felt full of concrete. Paul made coffee. I forced a smile. This is still our moment, I whispered. Downstairs, the house was already alive. Lila humming in the kitchen. Dad setting the table. It all looked the same, but nothing felt real. Presents were opened, wrapping paper everywhere, voices rising and falling in that practiced family rhythm. They handed me a sweater, a gift card, lavender bath salts, generic, effortless, forgettable. I gave them everything. Time, money, thought. They gave me whatever was left over, and then they moved on. Lila and Mom returned to the kitchen. Dylan disappeared with his phone. No one asked about wedding plans. No one even offered to toast. Paul leaned close. You sure you want to stay the whole day? I wasn't. But I needed to know how far it would go, so I waited, watched how easily they could smile at me, laugh with me, sit beside me while hiding tickets and secrets. And a suitcase full of silence. They didn't feel guilty, not enough to stop, and that was worse than anything else. The decision came quietly. No explosion, no grand scene, just a moment when Lila left her phone unattended again. Same chat, new message, tomorrow 10 a.m. flight, meet at Terminal 3. I didn't hesitate this time. I walked into the kitchen, held up her phone. Going somewhere. She froze, eyes wide, face drained of color. What are you talking about? I tilted the screen toward her. The Bahamas. Tomorrow, the trip everyone's taking. Except me. The room behind us fell quiet. I could feel it, the weight of people listening. Mom stepped in, drying her hands. What's going on? I turned to her. I know about the trip, the one you've been planning for months. The one that includes everyone but Paul and me. Dad walked in next. His mouth opened, but no words came. I looked at each of them, one by one. Why, I asked. Why lie? Why pretend? Why am I only included when someone needs something? Dylan stared at the floor. Lila couldn't meet my eyes. Mom finally said, "We didn't want you to feel left out if you couldn't come." "But you never asked," I said, voice shaking. "You didn't give me the choice. You just made it for me." No one answered. They just stood there, silent, still, like I'd ruined a game they thought they were winning. "So let me ask this," I said slowly. "Who's paying for the trip?" Mom glanced at Dad. He looked down. "Dylan," I said, turning to him. "That 3 years, $1,000 loan you begged for in September, was that really for business equipment?" He opened his mouth, then shut it. "I was going to pay you back," he muttered. I turned to Lila. "And that rent money in October, the one you cried about because your job cut hours?" She flinched, didn't say a word. "And Mom, Dad, the plumbing emergency last month? Was there even a leak?" Mom's eyes welled up. "Grace, please understand." "No," I cut in. "You wanted a family vacation, but not with me. You wanted my money, not my presence." Dylan crossed his arms. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. "It's not about a trip," I said. "It's the months of planning, the lying, the way you used me to help fund a vacation I was never supposed to know about. You didn't just leave me out. You made sure I paid for it." The room stayed quiet. No one defended themselves, because deep down they knew I was right. Mom stepped forward, tears clinging to her voice. "Grace, please. We never meant to hurt you. You didn't mean to, but you did it anyway," I said, repeatedly, quietly. "Together," Dad rubbed his temple. "We just thought it'd be complicated with your work schedule and Paul's family. It didn't seem like the right time." "Complicated," I repeated. "Was it more complicated than coordinating 6 flights, choosing a resort, booking group excursions, and hiding it from me for months?" They looked away. 6 months, I added. "You planned this for half a year, and not once did anyone think I deserved to know." Dylan shifted uncomfortably. "You always make things so heavy, Grace. It's just a vacation." "No," I said, voice steady. "It's never been just a vacation. It's always been about roles. You take, I give, you drift, I anchor, you spend, I clean up." Mom's lips trembled. "But we're family." I nodded slowly. "Exactly. And real family doesn't erase you, lie to you, and then spend your money on sand and sunscreen. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. Every single one of you made it." Lila finally spoke. "You're blowing this out of proportion. You always think everything's about you." I turned to her. "No, Lila. I think nothing's ever about me. Until someone needs money, or help, or a rescue." Dad stepped in, voice firmer. "Your mother is upset. We were just trying to have one nice vacation. Don't ruin it for her." I almost laughed. "Ruin it? You mean by discovering it?" Mom reached for my arm. "Grace, please. Let's not do this. Not today." "But that's the point, isn't it?" I said quietly. "You wanted me here, just long enough to keep the peace. Smile, serve, pretend." Paul stepped closer, hand gently on my back, but I didn't need him to speak. I needed them to listen. "You all get to be messy, complicated, flawed, and I get to be stable, predictable, convenient." No one interrupted, because they'd heard it before. They just never thought I'd say it out loud. "Did you even think about what this would feel like?" I asked. "To open gifts I sacrificed to buy while you were packing for paradise." Silence. "Yos. You didn't just forget me. You expected me to stay quiet about it." And for the first time in my life, I didn't. The silence after my words was louder than any shouting match. Mom wiped her eyes. "Don't leave like this. It's Christmas." I looked around the room, at the people who'd shared my table, used my trust, spent my money, planned joy around my absence. "Yes," I said, "it is Christmas, and I just found out what my family really thinks of me." Dad crossed his arms. "You're being dramatic." Paul stepped forward. "We should go." I nodded. My hands trembled as I grabbed our coats. The gifts I had carefully wrapped still sat under the tree, forgotten, unappreciated. No one tried to stop me. Not really, just words thrown out like crumbs. "We didn't mean it. You're overreacting. We'll bring you something back. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. In the car, Paul drove in silence. I stared out the window. The cold pressed against the glass, but my chest burned. They used me, I whispered. For years. Paul reached for my hand. What do you want to do? I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, things could never go back to how they were. The week after Christmas felt like a fog. I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. Not because I was ill, but because I couldn't fake it anymore. Paul brought me tea, sat with me in silence, never said, I told you so. Never made it about him. Just stayed. My phone never stopped buzzing. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. I didn't answer. Not ready. Each notification felt like a tug, like they still owned part of me. Then came the photos, sunset walks, cocktails by the pool, matching tropical shirts, smiling faces, my family together without me. They looked so happy. It made me wonder, did I ever matter or just what I provided? Paul sat beside me as I scrolled through picture after picture. You should block them, he said gently, at least for now. I shook my head. No, I need to see it. I need to feel it, so I never forget. Because part of me still wanted to believe it was a mistake. But the smiles told the truth. They were fine. I was the only one in pain. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't the first betrayal. It was just the first time I finally saw it. On New Year's Eve, I finally opened their messages. Not because I was ready, but because I needed to know if anyone understood. They didn't. From Mom. You're overreacting. We love you. We just didn't want to make you feel bad. From Dad. This vacation was your mother's dream. Don't ruin it for her. From Dylan. Seriously, drama much? It's just a trip. I'll pay you back when I'm home. From Leela. You're being so emotional. Not everything is about you. Not a single apology. Not one sentence that said, we're sorry we hurt you. They didn't get it. Or maybe they did and didn't care. I threw my phone across the room. It landed face down on the floor. Paul looked up from the couch. I whispered, they still don't understand. They think I'm mad because I missed a vacation. They don't see the lying, the manipulation, the years of being taken for granted. He nodded quiet. You've always been the one who gave, the one who fixed everything. I closed my eyes. His words sunk deep. He was right. And I was finally starting to wonder if maybe being the strong one was just another way of being alone. A week into the new year, Paul gently suggested I talk to someone, not because I was broken, but because I was carrying too much for too long. I hesitated. Therapy felt unfamiliar, like admitting something was wrong, but I went. Dr. Barrett's office was quiet, soft lamps, warm walls, no judgment. I told her everything from the Christmas morning lie to the years of being the responsible one. She didn't interrupt, just listened. And when I finished, she asked one question. When was the last time you received without guilt? I blinked, opened my mouth, closed it again. I couldn't remember. Every favor I accepted, I repaid twice. Every compliment I deflected. Every kind gesture I felt the need to deserve. Even love, I treated like something I had to earn. Dr. Barrett wrote something down, then said grace, being dependable isn't the same as being valued. Do you know the difference? I didn't. But I wanted to learn, because for the first time in my life, someone wasn't asking me to fix anything, just to feel it and heal. That was the first hour I didn't defend them. And the first time I started choosing me, Dr. Barrett gave me homework. Make a list, she said. Every time you gave, every time they asked, every time you said yes when you wanted to say no. I thought it would take an hour. It took 5. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, a cup of cold coffee, and a pen that kept running out of ink. 2017, Dylan's third business failure, $4,000. 2018, Lila's moving costs, $1 and $200. 2019, Mom's unexpected dental work, $850. 2020 emergency rent for Dylan. Twice. 2021 groceries, car payments, textbooks. The list went on. Page after page, memory after memory. By the end, I had over 70 entries, more than $68,000. And that was just the money. It didn't count the sleepless nights, the missed vacations, the emotional labor, the silence I swallowed to keep peace no one else protected. Paul sat across from me reading each line quietly. He didn't say I told you so. He didn't look shocked. He looked sad. For me. I stared at the final number. It wasn't just about the dollars. It was about what it represented. Every time I gave hoping they'd finally see me, and every time they took proving they never truly did. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Not an envelope, just a folded piece of lined paper slipped under our door. It was from Mom, written in her careful looping script. I sat on the couch, Paul beside me, as I read it aloud. Dear Grace, we're heartbroken over what happened. None of this was ever meant to hurt you. We were just trying to give the family something light after such heavy years. You always carry so much. We didn't want to add to that. We thought you'd be too busy. You never seemed interested in group trips anyway. And yes, we should have told you, but we were afraid you'd take it the wrong way. This family loves you even when you make it hard to. That last line cut deeper than any silence. Paul reached for the letter, he read it slowly, then said, There's not one sorry in here. He was right. No ownership, no remorse. Just excuses wrapped in fragile affection. They weren't apologizing, they were explaining why I shouldn't feel hurt. And that made it worse, because deep down they still believed I was the problem. Not the lie, not the exclusion, not the years of one-way giving. Just my reaction to finally seeing it. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in a drawer. Not to forget, but to remind myself of what a non-apology looks like. Paul asked, Are you going to write back? I shook my head. Not this time. Because for years I would have written pages, explaining my feelings, trying to get them to understand, begging gently to be seen. But I was tired. Not angry, just done. Done managing their guilt, done performing calmness so they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. So I didn't respond. No text, no email, no phone call. And the silence felt strange but clean. The next few days were quiet. No more messages, no voicemails, no sudden regret from their end, which only confirmed what I already knew. They weren't sorry I was hurting. They were sorry they got caught. I went for a walk that evening. Snow still clung to the edges of the sidewalk. The world felt still, but I didn't feel small. For once, not doing anything felt like power. Because sometimes you don't have to burn bridges. You just stop crossing them. And when the silence stretched on, they didn't chase me. They just moved on. A week passed, then two. No calls, no new letters, just space. And in that silence, something unexpected crept in grief. Not for the trip, not even for Christmas, but for the version of them I used to believe in. I missed Mom's humming in the kitchen, Dad's dry jokes, the way Lila used to crawl into my bed when storms scared her. For a moment, I wondered if I had overreacted, if maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe I was too harsh. But then I opened the notebook again. The list, the numbers, the patterns, page after page of giving without being seen. Years of swallowing my needs so theirs could be louder. That wasn't love. That was survival, and survival shouldn't feel like begging to matter. Paul saw me staring at the list. He didn't say anything, just brought me tea, sat down beside me. That quiet kindness made the contrast feel sharper. I didn't miss them. I missed who I thought they were, and maybe they missed who I pretended to be. But I wasn't that girl anymore, and I wasn't going back. One afternoon, Dr. Barrett asked me something simple. Have you cried yet? I blinked. No, I said. I've been too angry. She nodded. But anger usually stands guard over something softer. That night, I sat in the shower until the water turned cold. And then it happened. Grief. Not loud, not dramatic, just a slow, aching release from the center of my chest. I cried for the little girl who tried so hard to be useful, who thought love was earned through effort and silence. I cried for the teenager who canceled trips, worked overtime, paid bills that weren't hers. I cried for the woman who kept showing up even when no one saved her a seat. And when it was over, I didn't feel weak. I felt clean, lighter, honest. The next morning, Paul noticed, "You look softer," he said. And I realized I wasn't hiding anymore. Not behind sarcasm, not behind patience, not behind the word fine. I wasn't okay. But I was real. And real felt better than strong ever did, because strength isn't silence. It's feeling everything and still choosing to stay standing. 3 weeks after Christmas, Dylan texted, "Back in town, let's grab lunch, just us." The old me would have said yes immediately, polite, curious, desperate for closure. But I paused. I read the message again, noticed what wasn't there. No apology, no acknowledgement, no effort to make things right, just a casual reset, like nothing had happened. I typed slowly, "Thanks, but I'm not ready for that." My thumb hovered. I considered softening it, adding emojis, making my own boundary easier for him to digest. But I didn't. I hit send and put the phone down. My chest tightened, then relaxed. Later that day, Paul smiled when I told him. First time he asked. I nodded. Ever. Setting boundaries wasn't easy. It felt like breaking rules no one ever wrote down, but everyone expected me to follow. Be available. Be helpful. Be kind even when it costs you. But I wasn't willing to pay with pieces of myself anymore. That one message wasn't just a refusal. It was a beginning. The first small moment I chose peace over pleasing and didn't apologize for it. The days that followed were quiet, not empty, not lonely, just still. No texts from Dylan. No guilt-laced messages from Mom. No calls asking for favors disguised as just checking in. And for the first time, I didn't fill the silence. I didn't explain, didn't chase, didn't soften the space so others could feel comfortable. I went for long walks, listened to music without lyrics, cooked meals slowly, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Somewhere in that stillness, I heard my own voice again. The one that used to be drowned out by other people's needs. The one that whispered things I always ignored. You're allowed to rest. You don't have to earn love. You are not difficult for asking to be treated with care. Paul noticed too. He said, "You laugh more now, like it's not forced." And he was right. There was no more pretending, no more emotional debt to pay for peace. Just me, as I am, unapologetic. Turns out healing isn't a finish line. It's a quiet room where you can finally hear yourself think and not feel the need to leave. Another letter came, this time from Lila. Thicker paper, ink smudged in places. It started soft. I didn't realize how deep it went. I was selfish. I'm sorry. The words I had waited years to hear, but even as I read them, something inside me stayed still. Because I finally understood an apology doesn't erase a pattern. It only matters if the change comes after. Lila asked to meet, to talk things through, to go back to how we used to be, but I didn't want that. Because how we used to be meant me carrying everything so no one else had to. It meant disappearing in plain sight. It meant being praised for how much I could tolerate. I sat with the letter for 2 days. Then I wrote back, "Thank you for your words. I needed to hear them. But I'm not ready to reconnect. I'm working on being someone new, and that version of me has different boundaries." I signed it simply. No guilt, no explanation, just honesty. Because forgiveness is possible, but access, that has to be earned, and not everyone gets a second chance at the same version of you. I used to think closure meant a final conversation, a teary reunion, maybe a hug, maybe a promise to change, but none of that came. And still I felt lighter, not because they apologized the right way, not because they suddenly understood, but because I stopped waiting for something that would never arrive. Closure didn't come in their words. It came the moment I stopped explaining mine. Dr. Barrett said, "Sometimes peace looks like walking away without slamming the door." So I left it open. Not wide, but enough. For them to do the work if they chose. Not because I asked, but because they saw the need. Weeks passed, seasons shifted, and I didn't ache like before. I could look at old photos without flinching. I could remember good moments without rewriting the bad. That's when I knew I had changed, not to punish them, but to finally protect me. Because healing isn't about getting even. It's about getting clear on who you are, what you need, and what you'll never accept again. And in that clarity, I found the kind of closure they were never capable of giving me. There was a time I would have done anything to keep them close, swallowed truth, softened pain, shrunk myself until I fit into their comfort. But that version of me is gone now. Not bitter, not angry, just awake. I didn't lose my family. I lost a role, the quiet giver, the peacekeeper, the one who stayed small so everyone else could stretch. And in losing that role, I found something louder, wider, more honest, my voice. It no longer shakes when I say no. It no longer bends just to keep the room from breaking. Paul sees it too. He tells me, you stand taller now, even when you're sitting still. And maybe that's what healing is, not a return, but a rise. Not reclaiming the past, but releasing it. There are still moments, grief knocks quietly, but I answer with truth now, not guilt. I still have a family. It just looks different. It's made of those who see me, choose me, hold space for me without asking me to disappear. And that is more than I ever thought I deserved, until now. Growing up, I thought love meant giving, always. Giving your time, your energy, your yes, even when it cost you. I thought love was supposed to stretch you until you broke, and then stretch you more. But that wasn't love. That was conditioning, and I'm unlearning it. Love doesn't sound like you owe me, or after all I've done for you. It doesn't hide behind guilt or expectation. Love is not a transaction. It's not earned by exhaustion. It's presence. It's consistency. It's quiet care when no one's watching. Paul taught me that. He never asked me to prove myself. He never made me feel guilty for needing rest, space, or silence. He just loved me where I was. Not for how much I gave, but for who I was when I stopped giving. And that changed everything. Because now I know if love feels like a weight, a debt, a job, it isn't love. It's control. And real love feels like freedom with roots, a place you can land without asking for permission. Spring came quietly, the kind of soft season that doesn't announce itself, it just arrives. One morning, a group chat popped up on my phone. Family BBQ, Sunday, Lila's house. Would love to see everyone. No message just for me, no check-in, just a mass invitation. Old me would have gone. Showed up with potato salad and a smile. Tried to act like nothing happened, but I'm not her anymore. I stared at the message. Felt the familiar pull, the need to keep peace, to look gracious, to make it easy for them. Then I breathed, set my phone down, and didn't reply. No dramatic exit, no monologue, no need to explain why I wouldn't show up just to shrink again. I went for a walk instead, held Paul's hand, bought fresh flowers, laughed at something ridiculous and real. The world didn't fall apart because I chose myself, and they didn't follow up. That silence used to hurt. Now, it confirmed the truth. Sometimes healing means disappointing people who were never really rooting for your wholeness. And this time I picked me. Without guilt, without a speech, without looking back. Months passed, not dramatic ones, just quiet, steady days stitched together by small piece. I stopped checking if they'd call, stopped rehearsing what I'd say if they finally understood, because I no longer needed their understanding to feel complete. My worth was no longer measured by their comfort. I started reading again. Books I never had time for. I planted herbs on the balcony. Basil, mint, rosemary. Life wasn't flashy, but it felt mine. Dr. Barrett once said, sometimes wholeness feels boring after a lifetime of chaos. She was right. There were no sharp edges, no emotional whiplash. Just a gentle rhythm that didn't require my sacrifice to keep moving. Paul noticed it too. You don't flinch anymore when your phone lights up, he said one morning. I smiled, because he was right. Peace used to scare me. Now it felt like home. And maybe the biggest plot twist of all wasn't revenge or a reunion. It was this a life I didn't have to earn with pain, just breath and choice. And finally, my own rhythm. There wasn't a final moment. No sudden shift. No perfect clarity, just one quiet morning over coffee when I realized I no longer expected them to change, not out of bitterness, but out of peace. For so long I'd waited for an apology, for growth, for them to see what they'd done. I held space they never asked for, paused my healing just in case they decided to meet me there. But that day with the sun pouring through the window, I stopped. I didn't wish them harm. I didn't want revenge. I just released the hope that they'd ever become what I once needed. Because maybe they couldn't, or wouldn't. And either way, it wasn't mine to fix. Paul looked up from his book. You seem lighter today. I nodded. I think I finally let them go, without hating them, without needing them to understand. He smiled. You came home to yourself. And I had, not by winning them back, but by walking away without waiting to be followed. I used to think freedom would feel big, like running through airports or slamming doors, but when it came, it was quiet, almost gentle. It looked like saying no without guilt, leaving texts unread without shame. It sounded like my own laughter unfiltered, not timed between their moods or softened for their comfort. Freedom showed up in the grocery aisle when I didn't check if I was buying something they'd approve of. It came in planning a weekend that had nothing to do with anyone else's emergencies. It came when I chose rest over explanation, silence over performance. I realized freedom isn't rebellion. It's permission. To be full, to be soft, to take up space without needing to prove I belong in it. Paul saw it in me too. The way I moved slower now, the way I no longer braced before speaking truth. You're not afraid of being misunderstood anymore, he said one night. And he was right, because I no longer needed to be heard by people who were never really listening. Freedom wasn't them losing me. It was me finally choosing to belong to myself. One evening, I scrolled through old photos, birthdays, vacations, laughter frozen in time. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just felt distance. Not anger, not regret, just the quiet understanding that some chapters aren't meant to be reopened. There was a message waiting in my inbox from Mom, thinking of you. Maybe this summer we can all talk, no promises, no questions. Just a crack in the door I once would have rushed to open. This time, I didn't. Not because I hated her, but because I loved myself more. I closed the message. No dramatic reply, no emotional draft I'd never send. Just a pause and then delete. Paul looked up from the stove. You okay? I nodded. I think I just let go for real, because goodbyes don't always arrive in raised voices. Sometimes they come in the silence you choose instead of the noise you used to beg for. No more chasing, no more fixing, no more proving, just a soft lock turning not to shut them out, but to finally protect what's been rebuilt within. It didn't end with one big moment. No fireworks, no music swelling in the background. Just mornings where I woke up without heaviness in my chest. Just nights where I no longer rehearsed what I should have said years ago. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded quiet and steady in ordinary days. In trusting my no. In honoring my rest. In not apologizing for feeling full, for needing less noise, for loving slower. Paul and I moved to a smaller place. More sunlight, less clutter. A life with fewer pieces, but all of them mine. I stopped reaching for people who only met me halfway. Stopped mistaking shared blood for shared care. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. I started dreaming again. Not about fixing things, but about building new ones. Maybe a garden, maybe a book, maybe just peace. That doesn't have to be earned. Dr. Barrett asked, "What do you want from here?" I smiled. Not to go back, not even to move on. Just forward, with softness, with self, with stillness that feels safe. Because healing was never the end. It was the beginning of me finally living honest. If you've made it this far, maybe you saw yourself in parts of me. The quiet giver. The one who kept peace by swallowing pain. The one who showed up even when no one saved them a seat. Maybe you've been left out, talked over, used gently, but used all the same. And maybe, like me, you've spent years trying to earn what should have been offered freely. Love, care, belonging. I don't know your story, but I know this. You don't have to stay in places that confuse your kindness for currency. You don't have to keep explaining why something hurt just because it didn't hurt them. And you are not difficult for needing space where your heart can breathe. It's okay to walk away without a grand speech, to choose silence not out of spite but out of self-respect. I thought I lost everything when I set boundaries, but I didn't. I found peace. I found clarity. I found myself. And if this story held a mirror to yours, maybe it's time you did too. Because healing doesn't ask for permission. It begins the moment you whisper, I deserve more than this. And you do. You always have. Share this if your heart needed it. Someone else might be holding their breath too. And if this spoke to something unspoken in you, I'd love to know. Drop a comment, just a word, a sentence, a feeling. Your story matters here. And if you felt held even for a moment, consider subscribing. There's more to come. More healing, more truth, more stories that remind you you're not alone.